I want to welcome you to the Pro Mindset Podcast. The Pro Mindset Podcast is all about diving into the headspace that results in championship performance. High-performing athletes, winners, have this mental flow and have a positive headspace for their performances and success. Join me, Craig Domann, sports attorney and NFL agent, on this podcast. I will interview pro athletes, college athletes, football coaches, and sports personalities. Together, we can discover how you can get in the flow and have your own pro mindset. Today on Pro Mindset, I have my second son, Craig Domann. Craig, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Craig is driving. He went to a workout today, and he's driving in rush hour traffic in L.A. today. So, Craig, let's share with the audience your history as a football guy, you know, the journey you've been on the last 4 years.
All right, so it starts my sophomore year of high school. Our starter goes down, and I get to start my first start, varsity, and go for 3 tubs and a couple hundred yards, and then he hurries back from an injury because he felt the pressure that I was coming up on him. And then later that season, I tear my labrum. And actually, through that injury is when I learned that I wanted to play college football. I'd always had a dream of playing NFL ball, but I'd never really dreamt about playing college football. And I remember it got really real once I had that surgery of, like, you either need to work your butt off and focus solely on football to get to college football or do something else with your life. I definitely got more serious about my craft, I would say, junior and senior year. I had started on varsity. Got to be a part of 3 state championships in high school. Then had 0 Division I offers out of high school. Went to Ventura Junior College, and it just felt like the right fit for me. It was a powerhouse Juco program, and I was part of a powerhouse high school program, so it just felt like the right fit. They bring in 2 bounce backs my freshman year, so I gray shirt, which was such a blessing because I really got to just get to know the guys better, get to know California a little better, and kind of just get equipped with what college is all about, get up to speed with football. And then my second year there, I start, but don't really start the entire year. You're going back and forth with another QB, and I didn't really earn the starting job until playoffs, which is wild to me. It felt like I came in and saved a couple games, but they obviously didn't see what I saw myself. And we make it all the way to the state championship game, lose by 5. And then the very next day, I'm sitting in a hot tub with my teammate just reminiscing about the season, and I get offered from Campbell University in North Carolina. I knew I wanted to mid-year transfer. That was my goal. That was my dream. So I took it and ran with it. Was at Campbell for then a year, and thought I was competing for the starting job the first 6 months, really just to learn that they were going to bring in a guy from Navy, and he was going to be their guy. So I ended up redshirting there and then coming back to where I'm at right now in San Bernardino, Juco. So I've been everywhere.
You are getting a lot of frequent flyer miles during your college experience, that's for sure.
That's right. You
Okay.
would know.
I would know because I booked those flights. So let's go back to Ventura. The playoffs and the last handful of games were magical. That was when I felt like you really showed that you belonged. You played against Riverside. They were the number 1 team in the nation, undefeated, had won like 42 out of 43 games at home. You were playing them on their home turf, and they had about 5 D1 defensive players. Thankfully, your brother and sister and your mother and myself had an opportunity to watch that game. I felt like that was the best game I've ever seen you play. Kind of share what was going through your mind in that Riverside game when everybody thought you guys were going to lose, and by winning, you got an opportunity to go to the state championship.
I remember before the game being on the bus, and this just feeling came over me of empowerment from the Lord, of just like to fear Him and Him alone. And I'd never really felt that before. And so I definitely had the pregame mindset needed to do what I was about to do. And honestly, that game was just bigger than myself. When I was a gray shirt, I got the opportunity to be up in the booth with the offensive coordinator. But I remember we lost that game at Riverside in the playoffs to end our season. And I remember after the game, my coaches came up to me like, "You're up next." And Riverside was always that team that we could never get over the hump at Ventura. And so not only for the program I knew it was bigger than myself, but I love being in those situations where a team can't get over the hump and this, that, and the third. But that's where I come in my opinion, is I'm going to win you those tough games. You know, you can put in the other dude versus the scrub teams, but you know who needs to be in when the game's on the line or the season's on the line. And I just feel like I'm that kind of player. One of a former Ventura player actually passed away in the off season going into the year I was starting, and so we dedicated that season to him. And the last time we all saw him was at that Riverside game the year before. So I kind of felt his spirit with us that night, and it was our night.
Okay, Brock, so you said you're like the dude for the critical games, big-time games. Why do you say that, and where does that come from? Is it something that historically you've done well in big games? Is it just something, is it a belief that you have? Share with everybody where that's coming from.
I just think that when big-time games or big-time opportunities come up, you either shrivel up or you step up and thrive. And my whole life I've just stepped up and thrived. I mean, I can think back to my last soccer game with my developmental team. I was put in at goalie for PKs, and I stopped like 4 out of 5. I remember in middle school in a basketball game, we're down 3. I hit the 3 in my best friend's face to go into OT. I've kind of always just had that knack of when it's time, I want the ball in my hands. It's something you either have or you don't.
Well, there's no doubt you've had it. You've even shown it multiple times, like even in a series, in a game where, you know, it's like 3rd and 15, and the coach on the sidelines is getting a punt team ready to go, and you get 16 yards.
Mm-hmm.
You've done that your whole life.
Well, and looking back on that Riverside game, honestly, like, he deserved to lose because of the disrespect they did on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they manned us up the entire game and said pretty much our guys are better than yours and your QB can't dot us up. And so that's exactly what I did. I dotted them up all the way down the field the whole game. If you respect the quarterback, you play back, you play zone, right? And you make them take the check downs and all that stuff. If you don't think a quarterback can beat you, you man them up and you blitz him. And that's exactly what they did. So they had zero respect for my game, and I saw that, and I took advantage of it.
Brock, let's talk about you as a quarterback and a strategist and a competitor. What do you like to see from a defense, and how are you going to attack whatever that is?
First and foremost, I love to see when we go 3-by-1 that they just leave their corner out on the island on the one side. Defense does that. It makes the game really simple. You take the other 10 out of the game, and you take the other 10 on my side of the ball out of the game, and it's a one-on-one battle. And usually that's our best receiver. So first and foremost, if they do that, I'm taking that majority of the game. But if they decide to, put a safety over there, I don't know. I genuinely think that I like just looking at leverage and matchup. That's the two things that are most important to me. So where they're lined up pre-snap says a lot about now obviously they can change post-snap, but it just says a lot about where they're going to be. And I always try to imagine the route before the snap and seeing who's my favorite matchup, who can take the top off the defense, or who can find the hole in the zone. Or matchup's really, really, really important to me, just because I need to trust my receiver. I need to know where he's going to be at, and I need to know that he wants it more than the defender. Because there's plenty of times in the game where you're going to throw a ball that if the defender wants it more, he's going to go get it. So I definitely value who I'm throwing to a lot when I go into a game.
Okay, so let's put you in a situation that a lot of NFL quarterbacks find themselves in, and a lot of big-time college guys do too. And that's that you got maybe an empty formation, you got 5-man protection, and maybe it's a 4-man front, and they're blitzing somebody, but maybe where they're blitzing, your offensive line may not be sliding in the right direction. What goes through your head as a quarterback when you're an empty and there's somebody coming hot, and you know you don't have a lot of time to think about where you're going to go with the ball? Is that something that you do during the week, and you already know what's going to happen before it happens?
Yeah, so most of the time in empty, knowing that it's a 5-man protection, you should have a hot route. When you see that blitz coming, that you just instantly go to that route. That's usually 5 yards or less. But let's say there's not a hot route for whatever reason, and what I love about people blitzing from space, which means just not from the box, is it gives me time to think of an escape plan. So if they're coming high into my back hip, I'm going to step up and, leave the pocket that way. Where if they're coming at a low angle towards my front hip, then I'm going to spin out. So what I love is that most of the time the dudes that are blitzing from space, they don't get to blitz very often. So they're really excited, and they're blitzing full speed. Well, if defenders were smart, they would blitz as fast as they can under control. Because if you're blitzing full speed at me, I love that, because I do one little move up or one little move back, and you're blowing right past me. So majority of the time, it's really not that big of an issue, just because I can see it, I can react, and it actually gives me more time to be able to look for someone downfield, because then it becomes scramble drill, and now your receivers have been running routes for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and it's inevitable someone's going to be open.
Well, what's interesting about the pocket is there's an exit door to every pocket, maybe sometimes 2. You just got to find it based upon where the pressure's coming. What's been the biggest difference between playing college quarterback and playing high school quarterback?
For me, it's just been the understanding of the why behind the play call. In high school, they can just call a play, and your guys can just be better than theirs, and it can work even if it doesn't necessarily the best play for that scheme that the defense is playing. Where in college, it's very purposeful of why the play caller is calling the play he's calling, and if you don't know the reasonings behind why he's calling it, you will be benched. If you can understand what he's thinking, where he wants you to go with the ball, where he wants you to start your progression and then move to, there's a reason behind that. He puts in more time in the film room than you do, and he probably knows a little bit more than you do. And especially in college, when they treat quarterbacks like puppies in the sense of that we don't know anything and that we need a tight leash. And so when they want you to start your eyes somewhere and finish your eyes somewhere, they can mean it. And they're very, very harsh on it, because they're going to try to control you as much as they can until you've proven that you deserve some freedom. In high school, you might have been the guy. You might have had a really nice connection with your coach or whatever the case may be. But I definitely feel like college is definitely the place where they have the tightest leash on the quarterbacks, and you really got to do what they say, and you got to understand why they're telling you what they're telling you.
What's been the toughest lesson that you've learned in college? When you leave Colorado and head over to Ventura, then you go over to North Carolina, and then now you're back to LA. From a football standpoint, obviously from a life standpoint, you've learned a lot. From a football standpoint, being with different coaching staff, different systems, different schemes, different play calls, different philosophies, and different coaches, what's been the toughest thing for you to learn?
Yeah, I would say 2 things. One is that you have to reprove yourself wherever you go, because they do not see you the way you see you. And they don't care about your resume, because if they did, I think things would have been a little bit differently for me. Going into Ventura, I was like, I won 3 state championships. You got to know that I thrive in pressure situations. Well, they didn't know that, and they didn't know that until I proved it to them in front of their own eyes. And then I won the Southern California Championship at Ventura, proved myself once again in college, went to Campbell, thought that they'd look at my resume and be like, dang, like this dude really thrives in pressure situations. Nope, they didn't see anything that I see in myself in me, and I had to completely reprove myself. And so just understanding that just because you see yourself or your resume in a certain light or way doesn't mean they do. And they have to see it for their own eyes. They might have heard how great you've been, they might have seen tape of how good you've been, but they could care less. They want to see right in front of their eyes that. So I would definitely say that I learned that I need to be a better practice player because I'm definitely a gamer, but to just make more plays in practice. And then secondly, and this is the biggest one, is letting go of the perception of the way my life should go. If you would have told me my life path my junior year of high school, I would have quit football, and I promise you that. I would have quit it and done something else with my life. I definitely thought I was going to a Division I right out of high school. I thought I was going to be there for 4 years or maybe 3 years and get out to the league. Yeah, that didn't happen. So letting go of and then also with other things in my life, not just football, but with relationships, with friends, with school, with all sorts of stuff. With finances, I think that we all sometimes think we should be a little more ahead or a little farther in life than we are. And so taking that tortoise approach more than the rabbit approach has been such a big lesson for me of I'm where I need to be in this very moment. I'm back in junior college for a reason. And, don't be a victim of your life, but find a way to take advantage of where you're at.
Amen, brother. Couldn't have said it better myself. That was outstanding, Brock. Holy smokes.
Appreciate it.
Wow. Okay, so like you said, coaches have to see it with their own eyes. They don't see you the way you see you. How's it going so far at San Bernardino? Naturally, with this whole COVID mess, California shut down the Juco football for the fall and rescheduled for the spring. What are you doing right now? What's a typical week in Brock Domann's life, and how are you earning trust and familiarity with your coaches?
Yeah, great question. So, first of all, it's going great. I'm really thankful that I have the coaches that I have. They see my worth. They see, what kind of person I am, and I think that's the biggest thing I've been thankful for is these coaches have invested time into getting to know me as a person. And I think that's extremely important, especially as a quarterback of your team, that when there's no pads on and we're throwing routes on air, it's probably hard to distinguish who's going to be your starting quarterback. But when you start to get to know them as a person, what their off-field habits are, what they do in their spare time, what kind of morals they have, what kind of work ethic they have, that's when people really start to distinguish themselves away from others. And they've really invested that time into me, which has been great. But yeah, an average week for me is, I'm in full unit of classes, so I have online classes that I got to do every morning. But I work out with my quarterback coach 4 days a week. 2 days a week are strictly just quarterback, just footwork, just mechanical refining. And then the other 2 days are routes, one-on-ones, and if we're lucky, half line if we get some DB out there. And that's more of just competition-based, getting the reps in. And then also I lift 3 days a week, and then I try to get some cardio in here and there. I went on a run yesterday, which was really good. But really just school and training on repeat. And then when I don't have a scheduled training, I schedule my self-training because it's just what I love to do. I love to bring purpose to my body with movements and exercises. And I think that I work out more than just for football. I think I work out also for the challenge of it, to be able to push yourself to do something hard, because I really believe that when you make yourself go through something hard, that everyday life isn't as hard. That's why I think lazy people are the most miserable people in the world. It's because they try to take the easy way out in every aspect of their life. And so if one little thing is not even that hard, but seems hard to them, it's a big ordeal. So I think just trying to put myself in situations to stretch myself either physically or mentally.
Okay, so you're a quarterback. You've got to be a coach on the field. You've got to know a lot more than the typical, nothing against the receivers, offensive linemen, running backs, and tight ends. You're running the show. What do you feel, Brock, is the best mindset, the best perspective, the best approach to being a successful quarterback?
Best mindset, the best approach is that there's no easy way out. The only way that you can be successful is preparation. And I think it's extremely important to know tendencies of the defense, tendencies of the play caller, the defensive coordinator, and then understand what you have on offense and utilize your weapons. If it's a running back that just is exceptional with yards after catch, get him the ball early and often. If you have a big-time receiver that's 6'6", put the ball up top. Just really analyze the situation each and every play and give your guy the best opportunity to be successful. And give your playmakers ball in space. I see quarterback as being a point guard in basketball. My job is just to distribute the ball. It's not my job if they make the basket or not. It's just my job to pass them the ball. So just understanding leverage and numbers and matchup is what I look for. And you win the game during the week. You win the game Monday through Friday. And Saturday is just an opportunity to have fun and show what you got. But, yeah, it's won and lost definitely during the week.
What's the toughest aspect of playing quarterback?
The toughest aspect, I would say mentally it's when you threw a pick or you didn't convert on third down and you have to punt for the third straight time, and your players are looking at you sideways, your coach is looking at you sideways, your mom's looking at you sideways. Like, what's in your Wheaties, dog? Like, what did you...
The backup quarterback's excited and starting to warm up.
Exactly. It's such a temporary job. That's the toughest part about quarterback is at any given moment, they can replace you. And I think that they give a lot more leeway to a lot of other positions, where at quarterback, you're on a tight leash, no matter where you're at. You saw it last week with the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky has led him to a 3-0 start. 3-0. He throws one pick, gets replaced by Nick Foles. Nick Foles is going to be at the start of the rest of the year. So it's just very very pressure filled in the sense of knowing that last play could have been your season when it comes to play time. And then physically, I would say I've remembered a couple times during games, I'll break like a 40 to 50 yard run or something, and then we go hurry up, and you gotta go right away, and you're catching your breath, and you gotta fully comprehend the play call and do all this stuff while you're dead tired. So I'll just say, no matter what physical state you're in, you have to have a very sharp brain at all times.
Okay, let's talk about leadership. I always see quarterbacks as like the general on the field. How do you approach leadership as a quarterback for the team you're on now and in the past?
That's easy. Leadership, I think leadership has been hyped throughout sports way too much, in business way too much. All I think leadership is someone that does his job correctly on a consistent basis and knows his job so well that he can help others out and encourage others and just be a positive energy out there. I don't know what type of leader I am in the sense of if I'm rah-rah or if I'm quiet. I think I'm a mixture of both. I can be in your face yelling at you, hyping you up, and I can also be the quiet one that just is analyzing everything and keeping to himself. And so I think the number one thing for me when it comes to leadership is just lead by example. Everyone has a conscious belief of who you are, and then everyone has a subconscious belief of who you are. Everyone chooses what their conscious belief is, but no one chooses their subconscious belief. And their subconscious belief comes from if you are a hard worker or not. Day in and day out, they are getting, whether they realize it or not, you are either helping their subconscious belief or you are hindering their subconscious. Because if they see you busting your ass, they see you being all in, if they see you being that positive force, that leader by example, they're not even going to realize it, but when it's 4th and 4 games on the line, they're going to trust you. They're going to trust you. They don't know why, but they're going to trust you. And they're going to be like, Brock's got this. Where if you half-ass shit, if you cut corners, if you're just in it for the girls and the benefits that football brings you, they might still like you consciously. They might still think that you're the guy for the job consciously, but subconsciously, when it's 4th and 4, they're biting their fingers. They're like, they don't know why, but they're like, I don't know about this one.
Okay, so that's a very interesting perspective. I'd never heard that before, and I'm not kidding. But I agree with it. I think it's totally true. I think if you look at Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, his teammates totally trust him. They believe in him. You know, last year in the playoffs, they were down in every single game, and they came back from behind to win. Okay, Brock, so you got a big brother, not too much bigger than you. You've gotten a lot bigger lately, so I think you guys are about similar size. What was it like playing with JoJo back in high school? What are some of your favorite memories of playing with your brother?
It was the coolest thing and the worst thing at the same time. It was the worst thing. It was the coolest thing because I could literally just throw it in his vicinity and he'd go make a play. I mean, the amount of times that I threw it in the double coverage or threw it when I shouldn't have or predetermined I was going to him and someone else was open, it was a lot. Definitely trusted him with everything, which, I mean, he deserved to have that trust. He made play after play after play. So, but then it was the worst thing ever, too, because if I didn't look his way, you know, he's coming back in the huddle just cussing me out. You know, as the quarterback, as the leader, if your big bro is in the huddle cussing you out, they start to wonder, are you the leader? You know, like where the power dynamic seems off. You know, because it was definitely tough dealing with that big bro energy of like, you know, I run this shit, you just give me the ball kind of thing. That was definitely tough at times because I also knew that I was a baller and knew that I bring a lot to the table for this team. So, yeah, it was really bright when it was bright, and it was really dim when it was dim. So that's having a brother for you.
Yeah, well, one of the things that he did when he was being bossy and high maintenance, he was prepping you for those guys that you've already played with and you'll continue to play with down the road that they think they're like 7-Eleven. They're open 24/7 all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely prepared me to deal with guys with a big ego in the sense of that they're entitled to the ball. You got to remind them that there's 4 other people that I can throw to, and that it's so funny because they take it personal. That's my favorite part, is that these dudes take it personal, and especially at the college level. Now, high school, I get it because you can kind of just pick your matchup and go with it. But in college especially, it's like, dude, I have a progression I have to get through, so it's not about you. Like, this isn't personal. This isn't in spite of you. It's literally like I have a progression I need to get through, And if you get open in the timing that I need you to get open, you will have the ball. And if you don't, you don't. It's that simple. Yeah, and then also having JoJo as a brother, the biggest thing he's helped me with is you give someone else power, they can't take it from you. So when someone's being an asshole to you or someone is offending you or trying to belittle you, if you react in a way that you show them that you're hurt by it and you are offended by it, you just gave them the power that they wanted out of that situation. Where if you understand that if you show that you could care less and that you're going to do you regardless, they actually in turn respect you more and they treat you differently. And so that's definitely the biggest thing I learned from having a big brother is people can't take power from you. You can only give it to them.
Well said. You watched a lot of football. We went on a lot of trips together over the years. Who's your favorite NFL guy and why?
I'm going to have to go with Steve Smith, former receiver for the Carolina Panthers and the Baltimore Ravens. Dude was like 5'8", 5'9", like $175, and just had the most tenacious mindset and attitude. He really must have not looked at himself in the mirror because he saw himself as 6'5" and 230. He didn't see himself as what he was, and I loved the way he played the game. I loved his swagger. I think that's probably my favorite thing about sports is you get to display the confidence and swagger that you have, and so seeing the swagger he brought and the energy he brought to the game was something that I'd never seen, and still, I mean, there's not a dude in the league that's like Steve Smith. I mean, he'll truck you, he'll stiff arm you, he'll juke you. You don't know what he's going to do to you, but he's going to dominate you. And I just loved how his mindset and his approach to the game was my favorite thing.
And I was expecting you to name a quarterback. So who's a quarterback that you like and possibly learn something from?
Oh, by a landslide. I mean, it's not even close. Russell Wilson. His character, first and foremost. He's a family guy. He is a man of God. He is very prominent in social justice issues in his community. He visits the local hospital every Tuesday up in Seattle. And that's just off the field stuff. And then on the field, I mean, he does it. He's a perfectionist. He practiced perfectly so he can play perfectly. Obviously, there's no such thing as perfect, but he definitely strives for it. Just his demeanor, he's that humble warrior that you don't want to mess with because he ain't gonna talk shit to you or anything like that, but he's just gonna drill you up and down the field all day long. So I just love his demeanor. I love who he is off the field, and I love how his escapability is something that I look into the most of. Nowadays, teams are not looking for a guy who can just sit in the pocket all day and throw the ball. They're looking for guys that can make plays outside of the pocket, that can scramble for a first down, that can scramble, give themselves more time, and find someone 40 yards downfield that can make a throw from anywhere on the field. And that's Russell Wilson. And there's no one in the league right now that you got one drive to win. You're taking Russell Wilson. So just everything about him, he's definitely my favorite quarterback.
Dang. Well, my favorite quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, but after hearing your diagnosis and your report on Russell Wilson, maybe I should change my mind here.
Yeah, I think you need to. I think Patty is obviously extremely special, but Russell's been doing it for 9 years now. I mean, this dude is consistent. Not to say Patrick won't have an amazing career. It's just if you talk about reliability, the dude hasn't had a losing season. I mean, the dude is just so dang consistent, and that's so hard to find at the quarterback position is someone that you can literally, I mean, if there's one dude I'm going to Vegas and putting my life savings worth on, it's Russell Wilson, period.
Well, right now that savings isn't a lot, but that's pretty remarkable that you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, Brock, you've done a really good job of staying in your lane, focusing on the moment, controlling what you can control. I really feel like you've surrendered the whole idea of what's going to happen next. You're not worried about it. You don't talk about it. You don't think, maybe you think about it, but you don't talk about it. You're focusing on doing the job at hand. But let's pretend, just for the sake of discussion, that spring season's over and you have an opportunity to sit down with a D1 coach, and he asks you a question like, hey, Brock, you've been around the block, you've proven yourself, you're somebody we're excited about, but why should we give you a scholarship? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would respond with, look at my resume. I'm a dude that in big-time moments make big-time plays. I'm a dude that has had to reprove himself throughout college, and I'm a dude that wants it. No one leaves a full-ride scholarship to go back to Juco unless they really love the game, unless they really believe in themselves, unless they really have a strong desire to play at the highest level they can. And I would say that you're going to get a guy that's going to be one of the hardest working dudes on the team. He's going to bring great energy. He's going to develop deep connections with his teammates. He's going to win over the locker room, and is a dude that is going to be reliable on and off the field. He lives his life right off the field, and that on the field that he's going to do everything in his power to come out with a victory. That he's a dude that's not focused on the stats, not focused on how he looks. He's just focused on the end result of getting the W. And ultimately, just a fierce competitor.
Amen, brother. Okay, so growing up in a household with a pops that's been an NFL agent your whole life, having the opportunity to meet these guys, after games during the summer at our football camp, different things like that, how did that help you or how did that hurt you in your journey?
Yeah, so I'd say 99% of it helped me, and only 1% hurt. And the only way it hurt me was I've realized that my dream has always been to play in the NFL. It was never to play in college. And so being in college or getting prepared for college my junior and senior year, it was just weird because I just wanted to be in the league. I wanted to skip a step. I'd always kind of wanted to be ahead of where I'm at. So I think that's the only thing that hurt was the fact that I think a lot of dudes grow up and their dream is to play Division I football. That was never my dream. It was always to play NFL football because that's what we did. We didn't watch football on Saturdays. We watched football on Sundays. But, dude, they were my role models. They were everything to me. I looked up to them. They were friends to me. Just being able to see these superstars on TV be regular people, to me, was really cool. And then also just to learn their stories, to learn what it took to get to where they're at was just so cool to hear that every dude that's in the league, every dude that gets that second contract and makes those tens of millions of dollars earned it. Flat out earned it. And so just seeing, I think what I love about football is how much football, asks of you, especially as a quarterback. Your entire life has to be, every second of every day needs to be dedicated to it. All your energy needs to be into it. It takes everything to be successful in this sport. And so I just love how you have to be all in or all out. And I love it because I'm willing to be all in. And I love knowing that a lot of people aren't. And just having that edge of I'm willing to go through more suffering than you are. And so in turn, I'm going to get what I want out of this. So yeah, I would just say the biggest thing it helped me with was having the patience I have now with my life. I directly give all the credit to hearing all the stories of all the ups and downs and all the times they've been cut or whatever the story was, just a crap ton of adversity. So when a crap ton of adversity hit me in college, it wasn't a surprise. Now, didn't mean it was any less hard. It's just subconsciously I knew this was the path from the jump. So
that's very true. And very few guys with the number one pick in the draft win the Super Bowl as a rookie and get paid the first day they can, and they just win all the time, never get criticized by the fans and the media, never get hurt, never get replaced. I mean, Joe Montana, all these superstars at some point in time or another were doubted or replaced or benched. Okay, so that's just part of the deal. I also think your brother having injuries, he was able to overcome those injuries because it was part of the process. And
here's my favorite part about Joe and I's story is that never once have we called you saying, Dad, I don't know if I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if this football thing's for me. This is too hard. I didn't know this was going to, we damn well knew what came with this football journey. We both knew it was going to be a crap ton of adversity, whether we liked it or not, and we knew what we signed up for. Football breaks your heart every year, but you go back to it. It breaks your heart every single year, but you still go back to it because you love it that much. And so that's easily been my favorite part is that have we maybe questioned it at times? For sure. But we never thought it was going to be easy. We always have known that it's going to be extremely difficult and you're going to have to fight and claw back. And honestly, that's my favorite part is, you can't really find out what you're made of until you're at rock bottom. And you got to climb back up and start all over. And, man, that's an addicting feeling when you're at rock bottom and you still have this confidence about you that I can still achieve everything I want to achieve because you just have that solid of a belief system in yourself. And no one can take that from you. And that's addicting as hell.
Amen. Well, Brock, I'm very proud of you. I learned some things about you today that, believe it or not, I didn't know. I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset today. Have an awesome rest of the week, and love you, dude.
Love you too. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pro Mindset. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can follow us on our website, promindsetpodcast.com, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pro Mindset Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you the next time.